begins with an atmosphere that feels deceptively calm, almost too calm, as if the universe itself is setting the stage for something that is bound to spiral out of control. Lucy arrives at the bank in unusually high spirits, humming to herself, carrying a sense of light confidence that suggests she is still riding the emotional afterglow of her recent growth. Viv immediately notices this shift, raising an eyebrow with quiet skepticism, because experience has taught her that Lucy's calm confidence is often just the calm before something wildly unnecessary unfolds. Mr. Mooney, from behind his desk, observes Lucy with the same cautious awareness, already bracing himself for whatever chain of events might follow. The central situation of the episode is introduced through what seems like a minor announcement. The bank is preparing for a small promotional initiative, something designed to attract new clients and present a more welcoming public image. It is described as simple, straightforward, and handled mostly by upper management. Naturally, this is precisely the kind of thing Lucy interprets as an open invitation to get involved. Without being assigned any responsibility, she becomes immediately invested, convinced that her creativity and enthusiasm could elevate the promotion into something unforgettable. Lucy begins by brainstorming ideas, at first quietly scribbling notes, imagining slogans, and visualizing how the bank could present itself in a more engaging way. However, her imagination quickly escalates beyond practicality. What starts as a few suggestions turns into elaborate concepts involving themed presentations, customer engagement activities, and dramatic visual displays. She shares some of these ideas with Viv, who listens patiently but grows increasingly concerned as the scale of Lucy's vision expands far beyond what the situation requires. Despite Viv's gentle warnings, Lucy decides to take initiative. She interprets the absence of strict instructions as permission to act, convincing herself that she is helping rather than interfering. She begins making small changes, rearranging informational displays, adjusting signage, and subtly altering the layout of the customer area to create what she believes is a more inviting environment. At first, these changes go unnoticed, and Lucy takes this as confirmation that she is on the right track. However, as her confidence grows, so does her ambition. She starts coordinating with co-workers, assigning them roles in what she describes as a customer experience upgrade. Some employees play along out of curiosity, while others comply simply to avoid confrontation. Viv, caught between supporting Lucy and maintaining order, tries to moderate the situation. But Lucy's momentum makes it difficult to slow things down. Mr. Mooney soon becomes aware that something unusual is happening. He notices inconsistencies in the bank's setup, unusual activity among employees, and a general sense of disruption that he cannot immediately explain. When he investigates, he discovers Lucy at the center of a rapidly expanding operation that bears little resemblance to the original promotional plan. His reaction is a mix of disbelief and frustration, as he attempts to reassert control and remind Lucy that she was not assigned any authority over the initiative. Lucy, however, passionately defends her actions, arguing that she is enhancing the bank's image and creating a more dynamic experience for customers. Her enthusiasm is so intense that it momentarily destabilizes Mooney's authority, as he struggles to decide whether to shut everything down immediately or allow it to continue long enough to avoid causing further disruption. Ultimately, he issues a cautious directive. Lucy must not make any additional changes, and everything must remain within reasonable limits. Naturally, Lucy interprets this directive in the most flexible way possible. As the promotional day approaches, the bank begins to resemble something entirely different from its usual self. Decorations appear, interactive elements are introduced, and employees find themselves participating in Lucy's vision whether they intended to or not. The environment becomes lively, almost theatrical, blending genuine attempts at customer engagement with Lucy's unmistakable flair for exaggeration. When customers begin to arrive, the results are mixed. Some are amused by the unusual atmosphere, finding it refreshing and entertaining. Others are confused, unsure whether they are in a bank or some kind of performance space. Lucy, fully committed to her role, moves through the room with energetic confidence, guiding customers, explaining features, and presenting the bank as if it were the most exciting place in the world. The comedic tension builds as small issues begin to emerge. A display malfunctions, a scripted interaction goes off track, or an overly complicated system confuses both employees and customers. Each problem, on its own, is minor, but together they create a sense of instability that threatens to unravel the entire event. Lucy, determined to maintain control, attempts to fix each issue as it arises, but her interventions often introduce new complications. Viv works tirelessly to stabilize the situation, quietly correcting mistakes and simplifying processes wherever possible. Mr. Mooney oscillates between frustration and reluctant acceptance, recognizing that shutting everything down mid-event could be more damaging than letting it play out. The climax of the episode arrives when a particularly significant moment, perhaps the arrival of an important client or observer, coincides with the peak of Lucy's elaborate setup. Everything is operating at maximum complexity, and the smallest disruption has the potential to cause widespread confusion. Predictably, something does go wrong. A key element fails, and Lucy is forced to react in real time. In this critical moment, Lucy abandons her elaborate plans and relies on her natural instincts. She engages directly with the situation, simplifying her approach, communicating clearly, and focusing on what actually matters. Helping the people in front of her, her authenticity cuts through the chaos, restoring a sense of normalcy that her earlier efforts had obscured. This turning point shifts the tone of the episode. The exaggerated spectacle fades into the background, replaced by genuine interaction and practical problem solving. Customers respond positively, not to the elaborate presentation, but to Lucy's sincerity and attentiveness. By the end of the event, the bank returns to a more recognizable state. The decorations are removed, the system simplified, and the employees gradually resume their normal roles. Lucy, exhausted but reflective, begins to understand that while her creativity is valuable, it must be balanced with awareness and restraint. In the aftermath, Mr. Mooney delivers a measured response. He acknowledges that while Lucy's methods were excessive, her intentions were not entirely misguided. The event, despite its chaos, did generate attention and engagement. However, he emphasizes that effectiveness often lies in clarity and simplicity rather than spectacle. Viv reinforces this lesson in a quieter, more personal way. She reminds Lucy that her greatest strength is not her ability to transform situations, but her ability to connect with people. Lucy listens, and while she does not completely abandon her love of dramatic ideas, she begins to see the value of moderation. The episode concludes with a final, familiar beat. Lucy notices something small, an idea, a possibility, a spark of curiosity. Her expression lights up, signaling the beginning of another potential scheme. But this time, she pauses, just for a moment. And in that moment, the audience sees both who she has always been and who she is slowly becoming. Season 6, Episode 22 ends not with resolution, but with balance. Lucy standing at the intersection of chaos and control, still unpredictable, still imaginative, but just slightly more aware of the impact she has on the world around her. After the promotional event officially winds down, the bank slowly transitions back into its usual orderly rhythm, but the emotional residue of the day lingers in subtle ways. Lucy does not immediately celebrate or joke the way she normally would after surviving one of her own elaborate situations. Instead, she moves more slowly, almost thoughtfully, as she begins helping clean up the remnants of her grand vision. Decorations that once seemed brilliant now look slightly excessive in hindsight, and as she removes them one by one, there is a quiet sense of realization settling in. She pauses occasionally, holding an item, perhaps a sign she designed or a prop she insisted was essential, and studies it with a mixture of pride and mild embarrassment. It's not that she regrets what she did entirely. Part of her still believes the idea had potential, but she can now see the gap between imagination and execution, between what she thought would happen and what actually unfolded. This awareness doesn't come with dramatic regret, but rather a slow, dawning clarity that her biggest ideas often require more structure than she initially allows. Viv joins her during the cleanup, and their interaction here feels softer than earlier in the episode. There's no urgency, no chaos to manage, just reflection. Viv doesn't lecture. She simply works alongside Lucy, occasionally making light comments that help Lucy process the day without feeling judged. At one point, Lucy admits that she thought making everything bigger and more exciting would automatically make it better. And Viv gently points out that sometimes making things clearer is more valuable than making them bigger. This distinction sticks with Lucy more than she expects. Meanwhile, Mr. Mooney conducts his own quiet assessment of the aftermath. He reviews reports, listens to feedback, and observes the general mood of both employees and customers. What he finds is complicated. While the event was undeniably chaotic, it was also memorable. Some customers appreciated the energy. Others were confused but entertained. From a strictly managerial perspective, it was far from ideal but not entirely unsuccessful either. This ambiguity frustrates him slightly because it prevents him from delivering a clean, definitive judgment. When he eventually calls Lucy into his office, the tone of the conversation reflects this complexity. He begins with a firm acknowledgement that her actions exceeded her authority and disrupted standard procedures. Lucy braces herself, expecting a full reprimand. But then Mooney shifts, conceding reluctantly that her efforts did bring attention and engagement, even if not in the intended way. Lucy listens carefully, more attentive than usual, because she senses that this is not just another lecture. Mooney explains that initiative is valuable, but only when it operates within a framework. Without structure, even good ideas can create unnecessary risk. This concept lands differently now because Lucy has just experienced the consequences firsthand. She nods, not dramatically, not defensively, but thoughtfully. When she leaves the office, there's no triumphant grin, no immediate joke. Instead, she walks back to her desk with a quieter energy, processing what she has learned. This doesn't mean she has changed completely, far from it, but there is now a layer of consideration that wasn't there before. As the day continues, Lucy begins applying this awareness in subtle ways. A customer approaches with a simple question, and instead of turning it into an elaborate interaction, Lucy responds clearly and directly. The exchange is efficient, almost uneventful, and yet there's a small sense of satisfaction in how smoothly it goes. It's a different kind of success, one that doesn't draw attention but feels stable and real. Still, the tension between her natural instincts and her new awareness hasn't disappeared. In fact, it becomes more visible in the quieter moments. Lucy notices details the way she always does: tiny inconsistencies, small opportunities, things that could be improved. Her mind still jumps ahead, imagining possibilities, expanding scenarios, building ideas at rapid speed. But now there's something new interrupting that process: a pause. Not a long pause, not always a successful one, but it's there. At one point, she spots a minor inefficiency in how forms are being processed. Her first instinct is to redesign the entire system. You can almost see the idea forming steps, improvements, enhancements, but then she stops. She looks around. She considers whether this is truly necessary. Instead of acting immediately, she turns to Viv. "What do you think?" she asks. It's such a simple question, but for Lucy, it represents a shift from assumption to collaboration. Viv offers a practical suggestion, something small, manageable, realistic. Together, they implement it quietly, without disruption, and it works. That moment reinforces the lesson more effectively than any lecture could. Mr. Mooney notices this too, though he pretends not to. From his office, he observes Lucy choosing restraint over spectacle, and while he doesn't comment, there's a subtle change in his posture, a slight easing of the constant tension he usually carries around her. It's not trust yet, but it's closer than before. As the episode moves toward its final sequence, the tone becomes lighter again, returning to the familiar rhythm of humor, but now with an undercurrent of growth. Lucy begins to regain her usual energy, joking with Viv, moving more quickly, her personality reasserting itself. But it's not exactly the same as before. There's a balance now, a sense that she is slightly more aware of the ripple effects of her actions. And then, just when everything feels stable, the episode delivers its final test. Lucy notices something. Of course she does. It's small, almost insignificant, but to Lucy, it's interesting. Her eyes light up instantly. The spark is back strong, unmistakable. Her mind begins racing, connecting dots, building possibilities. You can almost feel the return of the chaos waiting just beneath the surface. She takes a step forward, and then she stops. The pause is shorter this time, but more confident. She smiles to herself, a knowing smile, as if she recognizes exactly what's happening in her own mind. For a split second, it looks like she might ignore the impulse completely, but